folks, I'm Matt and welcome to My Expanded Universe, a show where I go through the entire EU in chronological order as best I know how. Woo! Ooh! That felt therapeutic. Oh, hey there, man. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Yub Nub. You know, he wasn't in the original review when I started these novels, so I just kind of left him out of these. No, I don't think he'd care. Whoa! All right, so bad idea about that. Anyway, we're talking about the second book that came out in publication order from the Hungarian Han Solo novels from Valhalla Publishing called Han Solo Nomad. Now, this one actually takes place before the first one in publication order. However, for some reason it came out second. So if you want to switch these two books in your reading order, you can do so. But in Nomads, there's a new girl that's flying with Han as he's delivering cargo. He's delivering machine parts to a planet, Premont, I believe. And Kira is her name. Bullocks and Blue Max are in this. Now, I don't know why Bullocks and Blue Max are in this and not in the other adventures. I'm guessing he thought, well, let me just do one with some of Brian Daley's characters. And I love that he put it in there. However, the charm of Bullocks and Blue Max that they have in the Brian Daley books, it doesn't really translate well in these new books. They're just not as endearing. And I think it was more of a call out, you know, maybe a nod to Brian Daley's characters to have them in there, because they really didn't do that much. They weren't that integral to the story. And at the same time, Blue Max has some humor in the past, and they just seem to be there as showpieces and not really there for the story. But anyway, the machine parts actually turn out to be weapons for a local rebellion that's going on the planet. And it's kind of funny because this all happens super quick. They say, no, the other people on the board are like, oh, we're rebels, by the way. And Kira goes, oh, yes, and I am a rebel too. And they're like, wait, we didn't know you were a rebel. We thought you were one of the Imperials or whatnot. And then Han says, I'll join you. And I'm like, wait, whoa, that was really quick. In fact, well, it's the Tag family. Orem Tag, who was in the Marvel comic books, the guy with the big goggles and everything. He is kind of taking over the planet for the Emperor I could not understand what the reason was, particularly here. It didn't make it that clear, at least to me. Now, there is a cool scene. Again, it's another callback to Brian Daley's books, where Han is out and he's kind of cutting some cables to free the Falcon, and he's out in space. He has a spacesuit on, and he looks at the airlock. He goes, I wonder if that was what Torm's final thing he saw when he shoved Torm out the airlock and punched it out and then shot him out the airlock into space, which was really one of the best scenes in the EU, in my opinion. So that was interesting. He made a callback to that novel. It was a big part of Brian Daley's trilogy, of course, a big moment, I would say. But it was strange that it sounds fitting that he would call back to the other books. So maybe this is one that was supposed to kind of connect. Maybe they went back and said, hey, before you start your new Hungarian trilogy, how about do one, a Hungarian book that mentions some Brian Daley stuff and kind of smooth the transition over. I don't know, maybe. I'm just guessing there. An Imperial Troop Transport is mentioned, which is the old Kenner toy from back in the day that came out with his own short story, which I am, of course, loving. There is one thing that Han says here, that Gundarks are extinct, is what he says, for half a millennia. Now remember, these aren't strictly canon, right? So it's something that definitely could have gotten fixed. I'm sure if Lucasfilm would have been, if they would have approved it and issued it, they may have changed that. But that's what Han's saying. Plus, Han could be wrong, right? Maybe he hasn't seen a Gundark in forever, or he doesn't believe anyone who has. He just thinks they're extinct now. Han joins the rebellion to fight Tag's Imperial army. They're already battling walkers like you see on the cover there, and that is in chapter 4. This thing, all these are like 11, 12 chapters. They're very short reads, just a couple hundred pages each, so kind of easy to read, kind of like a novella or a young adult book. Valance from the Marvel comic books. I mean, he's really pulling a lot from the Marvel comic books. He is working for Tag too. And of course, that's not going to be in his Wikipedia page for obvious reasons, but it's something that easily could have been folded in if the Hungarian Han Solo books would have gotten permission to print through Lucasfilm. Han also says he's never worked with the Rebellion before. It's just not his style. Now, of course, if we're trying to make this all smooth over in the canon, you could say, well, wait a minute, you know, you in A.C. Crispin's trilogy, that doesn't count. Well, again, these aren't part of the official EU canon. However, you could also say that he doesn't want to talk about that a moment in his life, which I don't blame him. Now, there are this race of, they're called just nomads, and they're kind of telepathic. They can speak to Han through thought and have words resonate. They speak in all caps, which I thought was kind of neat. Another new alien race that you find here is a reek. And like, ooh, that reeks instead of stinks. But this is a shapeshifter. A reek is a shapeshifter. Again, none of this part of the official EU canon, but could have been if these books had been a part of that. Now, Baron Tag wants to blow up the planet. If he can't have it, he wants no one to have it. Somehow he's placed bombs all on the planet through it's called the machine. And the machine is going to blow up this planet that they're on, and he's going to show the Emperor. Maybe it's a good test for the machine or whatnot. And it doesn't seem like that was his plan at first, but when he's losing, now he's going to blow up the planet. However, Han imprints himself onto the machine, or the machine imprints Han with him, and now Han controls the machine. Now, this is very similar to what we saw in Black Fleet Crisis, where Anakin had connected to the... I'm drawing total blanks. Man, that attack by the Ewok really frazzled me. Centerpoint Station. Anyway, in the event, Han takes over the machine, basically, and takes care of the Empire, the Imperials. He actually kills Baron Tag, and the thing is, whoops. You know, well, we don't know. We just know that we're just told that Baron Tag didn't escape and the fortress blew up. Well, he could have escaped, right? You know, they said, well, he deserved to die or whatnot. And like, and then they do an odd callback to one of his, I think one of his own books or something. There's one where, and I don't remember this, but some man named Russ, when they took off in the Falcon, their exhaust ignited the fuel and burned him alive. And that wasn't in this book, and it wasn't in the other book, so I'm not really sure where that was. Maybe it's a Brian Daly thing and I just missed that. Wouldn't I remember that? I don't know, that was kind of odd. But they recall Russ deserving it, and so did Baron Tag. But Baron Tag is not shown to have died. He is trapped, and then later on it says the fortress exploded, and they say, well, Baron Tag is dead. Okay, hopefully, but there's obviously you could easily fit that in the canon and say, no, he escaped. It's okay. Either way, though, I think it would have been kind of neat that, you know, as Anakin imprinted himself onto Centerpoint Station, Han goes, yeah, that happened to me once. You know, of course, these aren't officially canon, so probably wouldn't happen. Either way, what do I think? Well, first off, on I had two different books I reviewed here. My actual original story that was given to me about 3 years ago, or 4 years ago now. And then the other one, which was created by AI. The one by AI it reads smooth, it reads nice, there's nice changes to it. The only thing that the AI copy really bothered me on was either someone didn't know how to work AI, or they were just lazy and just didn't edit it. I don't know what, but there's like letters missing at the first of a sentence, and you can kind of guess what they are, you know, so it's not too bad, but I was kind of confused, like, whoa, anyone who would have read this would have seen that it started with an ES, like lowercase, or an E. Probably the, right? It was probably what I was going to say, but it just started with a lowercase e, and there's got to be something there. So, and then other things I saw is, whenever they were working on it, obviously they didn't notice that it repeats some of the sentences twice in different, because when you ask AI to go back through and clean up some, like, clean up a structure of sentences, and you're doing it for a whole document, sometimes it will repeat a sentence twice, and that's what it did several times in several chapters. I was reading the same sentence twice, just different versions of how to read that, and I was like, oh, ugh. So whoever did that probably just did a slap-fast job and threw it out there, or just didn't know. You know, they just didn't know because they just made a copy, they thought it was neat, you know, either, maybe a little bit of both, who knows. But yeah, the AI copy that I have isn't as good in this case. The original is a little bit better. But again, if you want to do your own AI copy, you could just be sure to read it, maybe look over it. You don't have to edit it, just read it. And you can easily see the mistakes that were made. But either way, other than that, the book so far, Nomad, it's fine. A little weird here and there. I like the tie-ins to Marvel, the tie-ins to the Imperial Troop Transport, and of course the tie-in to Brian Daley's trilogy. Lots of continuity. I always love that. And I can't wait to talk about the next book in the series next time.